everybody. I hope you are doing well. This is a bit weird, isn't it? I did not imagine that virtual preaching would be a thing that I got up to in my placement year, but here we go. I'm going to set a timer because I'm going to try and be disciplined and keep it short. So we are starting a new series this morning on identity, and we're looking at the story of Joseph in Genesis. So I'm going to read the two passages that make up our Bible reading. The first one is from chapter 30 in Genesis, and it's verse 22 to 24. And then the second reading is chapter 37, verse 1 to 11. So I'll give you a second to look the verses up or get a Bible, but I will read them to you to start. Something I've done in the last couple of sermons that I've given is start with a big question and leave that out in the open, and then we will come back to it later on. So my question for you this morning is, if you could go back in your life and pick one day that you were going to return to, that you could do over, which day would it be? In all of your life, if you could choose one day that you wanted to go back to and redo, which one would it be? So if you just think about that whilst I read the Bible passage. So the first part, chapter 30, verse 22. Then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and enabled her to conceive. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son and said, God has taken away my disgrace. She named him Joseph and said, may the Lord add to me another son. And then the next time we hear about Joseph is when he's 17 and he starts to have dreams. So chapter 27, verse 1. Jacob lived in a land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. This is the account of Jacob's family line. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flock with his brothers, and the son of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornate robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of corn out in the field, when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered round mine and bowed down to it. His brothers said to him, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. Listen, he said, I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, what is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you? His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in his mind. What an introduction to a person in the Bible. That they are, the title for today's talk is Born into Brokenness and Redeemed to Reign. So when we first meet Joseph, when he is born, then it is to Rachel and Jacob, who have been waiting for a long time to have a child. And you might remember, if you flick a few pages back in your Bible, that Jacob is the brother of Esau, and they have a complicated relationship. And actually, all the way through Genesis, we have all sorts of broken moments where families are waiting and longing for something to happen, and it all is waited for, but it never quite works out as planned. And I wonder if in your life there are moments when you've waited and longed for something and it hasn't quite turned out as planned. I wonder what you were like at 17 and what your family looked like. Were you one of many? Did you have siblings? And was there difficulties as you were working out who you were in your family and what God was calling you to in your life? Was there tensions when you talked about the dreams that you had and they weren't quite what other people had imagined for you? The day that I would redo, if I could go back through my life, would be the day that I got baptised, which was the 18th of October 2015, and that's when I was 17. And the reason I chose this day is not because I regret getting baptised in any way, but it is a day that I had longed for, that I had thought about for about a year and a half before it happened. And I had a plan in mind, and I hoped that it was going to be this highlight of my Christian journey and that it was going to be a huge celebration. But it didn't go at all as planned. There were people who couldn't make it. There were kind of unexpected elements to the day. The outfit that I had planned wasn't going to work. I had my speech on note cards and I timed it and practiced it and it was brilliant, and then I went to give it and I just broke. I found it really emotional to share this story, and it was just not at all the day that I had in mind, and it is a day that I would love to redo, and I'd love to be calmer and I'd love to be more collected, but that isn't what happened. That isn't what God had in mind. I wonder, when we think about Jacob and Rachel and Joseph and his brothers, I wonder what days they would want to redo. As we read about their story in Genesis and as we hear more about it in the weeks to come, then there will be moments that will jump out to you and you might think, gosh, I bet they wish they could redo this moment. I wonder if Joseph thought later in life, I wish I hadn't been quite the show-off that I was at 17. I wish that I had been more empathetic and understanding when I was talking to my brothers. And I wonder what route his life might have taken if that had happened, if he hadn't then been sold into slavery, got caught up in prison, and then through incredible events end up speaking directly to the Pharaoh about his dreams. I wonder what would have been different. And actually in our lives, we can never know what might have happened if a few little moments had happened slightly differently. But we can say to God, here I am in my brokenness. This is where you've placed me for this moment. And I give my all to you. I'm born into brokenness, but I can be redeemed to reign. And that may look different for all of us. It may not be that you end up interpreting the dreams of the Prime Minister and that you end up in the corridors of power. But it will be something exciting. And redemption is something that can happen at any point in our lives, in our stories. It is not something that is a one-off. It is not something where you get a certificate and you are sorted. We can make the decision to be baptized, and that is an incredible thing, to say, God, I am giving my life to you and I am saved, and I am acknowledging that publicly in front of others. But that doesn't mean that we don't need saving from our sin and our brokenness, from errors that we make in the rest of our lives. It is a moment to draw a line in the sand and say, God, here is my life. But that doesn't mean that we are then fixed, that we have it all together forevermore. Life is a lot more complicated than that. And we see that in Joseph's story. We see that as he offers up his dreams and understandings, sometimes they go brilliantly and it's super exciting. When he's in prison, he shares interpretations with two of his fellow inmates, and one of them is good news, and that's so exciting, and then the other one is not. So these gifts that we have sometimes are brilliant, and we can share them with others, and there's celebration, and sometimes it's hard, and sometimes there is brokenness. The word redemption means the act of being saved from error, evil, and sin. And this is something that we see all across the Bible, New Testament, Old Testament, and in our lives today. There are broken people who are used by God, who are redeemed to reign and do incredible things. They are empowered with the Holy Spirit. And we know that Joseph, like many of the other prophets, are all foreshadows to Jesus. They are building up this sense of what is it like, what happens when God speaks to humans, when he works through us to see his kingdom come. And all of these people, from Joseph to Jacob to Rachel, they are pointing to Jesus, the only one who is perfect, who does not need to be redeemed from error because he is God. And I wonder, as you think about the days that you would like to do over, what are the days that you hold on to that have been lying in the sand moments, that have grounded you, and where God is saying, look, wow, this is what I've got in store for you. This is what I have planned. These are the dreams that I dream for you and with you. In this time where we are in lockdown, then it can be really healthy and helpful to spend some time reflecting on where you are at in your journey with God. Is this a time of brokenness? Is this a time of dreaming new dreams, of being redeemed and empowered? Is this a time to pause and take stock of where you are? And I just want to encourage you that a lot of the time we can think about what it's like to go back to normal. And I wonder if we could turn that on its head, and instead of aiming for normality, we aim for something so much more exciting. We aim to return to God, not to go back to normal, but to go back to God, to dream new dreams and be empowered during this time of lockdown. And I just, I pray that you would feel peace in this process, because introspection can be difficult, introspection can be scary, but we are a community of people who are dreaming big dreams, looking to God and saying, I am here, I am broken, but you are the fixer, the saver, the redeemer, and I give my life to you. So this is these are my thoughts for this part of the service. This is kind of part one, and then later today I'm going to do a recording with some more thoughts about what it means to be broken, and what it means to acknowledge our past and our history and where we've come from. I will then also do a write-up, so if there are bits that I've said that you feel you missed, or that you want to reflect on, or maybe share with other people, then this week there'll be an email that will go out with a summary of what I've said and some of the visuals that I might have put up if we were in church doing a normal service. Yeah, so look out for those. I hope you're doing well, and that's it from me.